February 17th, 1969, 9:40 in the morning. Indochina time, southwest of Fire Support Base Danger, Quang Tri Province. A Marine sniper squeezes the trigger at 700 meters and watches a People's Army of Vietnam scout collapse into the elephant grass. He works the bolt, breathes, and starts his count. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. At 15 seconds, the first mortar round detonates 50 meters short. At 30 seconds, 3 more walk up slope in 25-meter brackets. At 45 seconds, a Soviet RPD machine gun rakes his last firing line with a 90-round belt. He is 200 meters away, belly down in a dry stream bed, heart hammering, scope stowed. The jungle around his abandoned hide shreds under recon-by-fire, leaves shredding under recon-by-fire, as if a sensor grid just woke up. Everyone believed the shot made the sniper. In Vietnam, it made him pray. The mythology arrives from Hollywood and Korea. 1 man, 1 rifle, 1 perfect shot at impossible range, then silence and safety. Marksmanship schools teach wind, lead, and ballistics. 900 meters, 1,000 meters, clean kills that end the problem. The assumption holds that distance and concealment confer immunity, that the enemy lacks the technology or coordination to respond. Doctrine imagines the sniper as apex predator, lone wolf, invisible until he chooses to reveal himself. But Vietnam's jungles, villages, and rice paddies operate under different physics. Here, every shot is a transmission, acoustic, thermal, visual, and the enemy has built a network to catch it. The kill does not end the engagement. It triggers a 5-minute countdown. Survival depends not on the shot, but on what happens in the 300 seconds after. The network operates on 3 overlapping layers: acoustic triangulation, visual cueing, and human intelligence relay. Soviet acoustic detection doctrine, adapted from urban Stalingrad fighting and refined in Algeria, arrives in North Vietnam by 1965. People's Army of Vietnam and Viet Cong units position listening posts at intervals around suspected infiltration corridors and fire support bases. A rifle's muzzle blast generates a supersonic shock wave, the crack, and a subsonic muzzle report, the boom, arriving at different times depending on range and angle. Trained observers time the interval. Half a second suggests 500 meters, 1 full second suggests 800 meters. 2 listening posts provide a bearing, 3 provide a grid square. The moment a shot echoes, runners sprint to pre-positioned mortar crews, delivering verbal fire missions. Azimuth, estimated range, adjust from there. First rounds impact within seconds. Corrected fire lands inside 90 seconds. Simultaneously, the visual layer activates. Scope glint, sunlight reflecting off objective lenses, betrays position even under canopy. Muzzle flash, however brief, draws eyes. Camouflage netting, disturbed by recoil, creates micro-movement that trained watchers detect at 300 meters. Village militias, farmers, and children function as spotters, logging unnatural stillness, broken vegetation, or the scent of gun oil carried downwind. Reports flow through local cadre to company-level commanders within minutes. The third layer, radio-coordinated fire, amplifies lethality. By 1968, regimental-level People's Army of Vietnam units employ Chinese Type 63 mortars with pre-plotted target grids. Forward observers call grid coordinates. Battery commanders drop rounds onto known sniper hides, trails, and rally points. The system does not require direct observation of the shooter, only the shot. Counter-sniper teams, typically 3 to 5 soldiers armed with RPD light machine guns and RPG-2 launchers, maneuver towards sound. They do not hunt individuals, they saturate grid squares. Recon-by-fire strips vegetation, collapses hides, and forces movement. Once the sniper moves, he becomes visible and vulnerable. The invisible network transforms every engagement into a race: displace before fix, exfiltrate before saturation. American and South Vietnamese snipers learn this within weeks. The shot starts the clock. The next 5 minutes decide survival. Not marksmanship, but evasion. January 22nd, 1968, 10:15 in the morning, Indochina time. Sanh Combat Base Perimeter, Quang Tri Province. Gunnery Sergeant Carlos Hathcock and his spotter occupy a spider hole north of the marine lines. Hathcock carries a Winchester Model 70 with an 8-power Onertal scope. His spotter has an M14 and a PRC-25 radio. They have been in position since 3:30 in the morning, motionless, controlling breath and bladder. At 10:12, a People's Army of Vietnam officer steps into a clearing 700 meters distant, checking map coordinates. Hathcock centers the crosshairs, leads for wind, and fires. The officer drops. Hathcock ejects the spent casing, closes the bolt, and whispers, "Go." His spotter keys the radio. Shot out. And both men slide backward on their bellies toward a pre-planned creek bed 30 meters behind. At 22 seconds, the first 82mm mortar round detonates short of their firing position. At 40 seconds, a second round lands closer. At 55 seconds, a third round impacts directly on the spider hole they just vacated. Hathcock and his spotter freeze in the creek bed, faces pressed into mud as shrapnel hisses overhead. For 3 minutes, 12 more rounds bracket the area. The rifle crack echoes, then the mortar whump answers, then silence. Hathcock does not move for another 10 minutes. When he does, he crawls 200 meters east, parallel to the creek, before standing. The shot was easy. The leaving was hard. The Marine Corps Scout Sniper School at Gia Nang teaches this sequence as a gospel by mid-1967. Captain Edward J. Land, Jr., who establishes the program in May of '66, drills 2-man teams on immediate displacement. Students rehearse dead ground routes, gullies, streambeds, bomb craters that break line of sight from probable mortar observer positions. They practice suppressing scope, glint with improvised kill flash devices. Rubber bands stretched over objective lenses. They learn to offset firing positions from obvious hides. Tree lines, hill crests, lone bushes, so visual cues mislead observers. The doctrine assumes enemy response within 1 minute. Hathcock's Sanh logs record 17 engagements between January 20th and February 10th. In 12, mortar fire lands within 100 meters inside 90 seconds. In 4, he takes direct small arms fire from counter-sniper teams. He survives all 17 by adhering to the displacement clock. Other snipers do not. Between January 21st and April 8th, 5 Marine snipers die at Sanh, 4 from mortars, 1 from a close-range ambush triggered by staying too long. None dies from counter-sniper rifle fire. The network does not need to see the shooter to kill him. It only needs to hear the crack, fix the grid, and drop rounds. Hathcock's survival hinges not on his 700-meter shot, but on his 30-meter crawl. Not the kill, but the escape. March 14th, 1969, 2:20 in the afternoon. Indochina time. Plain of Reeds, Jin Tuong Province, Mekong Delta. Sergeant Adelbert Waldron, 9th Infantry Division, kneels in the bow of a tango boat as it drifts south along a canal choked with water hyacinth. Waldron carries a modified XM-21 sniper rifle with an ART 1-day scope. His spotter scans the western bank with binoculars. A Navy riverine gunner mans an M60 machine gun aft. At 2:22, Waldron spots a Viet Cong cadre 600 meters distant, crouched behind a dike, signaling with a cloth panel. Waldron fires once. The cadre slumps. The boat's engine revs immediately, helmsman accelerating. At 15 seconds, an RPG 2-round arcs from a palm grove on the opposite bank and splashes behind the stern. At 25 seconds, a second RPG overshoots. At 38 seconds, a B-40 rocket detonates against the waterport side, shrapnel pocking the aluminum hull. The boat zigzags, helmsman weaving between vegetation clumps as Waldron and the M60 gunner suppress the eastern tree line. No mortars fall, open water offers no grid-square fix, but the RPG teams triangulated the shot's origin within seconds. They knew where we were before we knew they were there. Riverine sniper doctrine in the Mekong Delta evolves around this acoustic ambush problem. Viet Cong units position RPG and recoilless rifle teams on both canal banks, overlapping fields of fire. A single rifle shot alerts 3 to 5 teams simultaneously. Runners relay azimuth and estimated range to mortar positions hidden, inland. Boats cannot displace laterally. They are locked to the canal. So survival depends on speed and suppressive fire. The 9th Infantry Division's mobile riverine force adopts shoot-and-scoot tactics by late '68. Fire one shot, go to full throttle, unleash automatic weapons to suppress spotters, exit the kill zone within 90 seconds. Snipers learn to take shots only when the boat is already moving or within 50 meters of cover. A bend, a vegetation curtain, a secondary channel. Static shots from anchored boats prove suicidal. Between January and June of '69, the 9th Infantry Division records 11 sniper-initiated engagements resulting in boat damage or casualties. All 11 occur when snipers fire from stationary or slow-moving platforms. Waldron himself survives 4 RPG ambushes by adhering to the mobility rule. He credits the helmsman, not his marksmanship, for his survival. The Mekong Delta demonstrates that terrain shapes the network's lethality. Open water eliminates crawl space and dead ground. Snipers cannot displace on foot. The invisible network adapts. Instead of mortar walk-ups, it employs direct-fire rockets. The principle remains identical: shoot, fix, saturate, but the tools and timelines compress. Waldron's engagement initiates a sprint. The boat travels hundreds of meters in that window, exiting effective RPG range. Had the helmsman hesitated, the 3rd or 4th rocket would have connected. The network does not need precision, it needs volume and speed. Waldron's record, 109 confirmed kills by September, reflects not just accuracy, but disciplined evasion. Not the shot from the bow, but the throttle in the stern. While he fires, the helmsman saves him. February 4th, 1968, 11:30 in the morning, Indochina time. Southwest Hua Citadel, Thua Thien Province. Corporal Chuck Mawhinney, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, occupies a 2nd-story balcony in a ruined French colonial building. Mawhinney carries a Remington 700 with a Redfield scope. His spotter has an M16 and a map of grid coordinates. Below, People's Army of Vietnam soldiers move through rubble-choked streets in small teams, clearing house to house. At 11:33, Mawhinney identifies the squad leader 280 meters southeast, directing troops with hand signals. Mawhinney fires. The leader falls. The spotter immediately pulls Mawhinney back from the window, both men flattening against the interior wall. At 12 seconds, a PKM machine gun rakes the balcony, disintegrating the balustrade. At 22 seconds, an RPG-7 rocket punches through the window and detonates against the rear wall, collapsing plaster and ceiling beams. Mawhinney and his spotter crawl toward a stairwell as dust and smoke fill the room. At 35 seconds, a second RPG impacts the floor above, triggering a partial roof collapse. They descend the stairs, exit through a ground floor, breach, and sprint into an alley choked with debris. Behind them, the building takes 4 more RPG hits and sustained machine gun fire for the next 3 minutes. They didn't need to see us. They just needed the sound. Urban sniper doctrine in Hue collapses within the first week of Tet. The Marine Corps and Army of the Republic of Vietnam discover that static hides, Windows, rooftops, balconies become death traps within seconds of firing. People's Army of Vietnam counter-sniper teams employ a simple protocol. Hear shot, identify building quadrant, saturate with RPGs and machine gun fire, collapse structure. They do not maneuver to flank. They destroy the entire grid square. By February 10th, Marine snipers adopt one-shot displacement rules. Fire, abandon position immediately, move to a pre-selected alternate height, wait 10 minutes, reassess. They learn to avoid obvious vantage points. Corner buildings, elevated structures, lone windows with clear sight lines. Instead, they fire from ground floor breaches, doorways, and rubble piles that offer egress routes. They pre-rig multiple firing points within a single block, rotating after each shot. The tactic sacrifices ideal range and angle for survivability. Mawhinney's Hue engagement log, compiled from debriefs, records 9 shots over 6 days. He changes position after every shot. 5 positions take RPG or recoilless rifle fire within 2 minutes of his departure. The network's urban variant relies less on acoustic triangulation, echoes confuse bearings, and more on muzzle flash detection and immediate suppression. Spotters positioned in upper floors watch for flash, estimate quadrant, and call fire. The response is not precise, but overwhelming. Buildings become untenable. Snipers who linger die under rubble. Between January 31st and February 24th, 7 Marine and Army of the Republic of Vietnam snipers are killed in Hue. All 7 die from indirect fire or building collapse, not counter-sniper rifles. Mawhinney survives by treating every shot as the start of an artillery barrage. He never fires twice from the same room, not the kill, but the sprint through smoke. While the building shreds, he is already gone. August 3rd, 1970, 5:45 in the morning, Indochina time, a Shao Valley, 14 kilometers west of fire support base Bastogne. Tua Tien Province, a long-range reconnaissance patrol team from Company L, 75th Infantry, Ranger, observes a People's Army of Vietnam supply column moving south along a tributary of the Rao Trang River. The team's designated marksman, carrying an M14 with a scope, identifies a column officer distant. The team leader signals approval. The marksman fires once. The officer collapses. The column scatters. The marksman immediately rolls left, crawling meters into a thicket of wait-a-minute vines. The team freezes, weapons oriented outward, listening. At 18 seconds, a mortar round detonates upslope from the shot's origin. At 34 seconds, 2 more rounds bracket the position. At 50 seconds, a 4th round lands near the team's actual location. Shrapnel clipping leaves above their heads. The team does not move. For 4 minutes, 14 additional mortar rounds saturate the area centered on the marksman's original firing point. At 6 minutes, the barrage ceases. The team waits another 15 minutes, then begins a belly-crawl exfiltration, moving along a goat trail hidden under triple canopy. They cover 200 meters in 3 hours, halt, and radio for extraction at a pre-designated landing zone. We knew the mortars were coming. We didn't know how many. Long-range reconnaissance patrol doctrine in the A Shao Valley and along Ho Chi Minh Trail corridors incorporates enemy acoustic response as a given. Teams plan every shot as a trigger for indirect fire, adjusting hide placement to exploit terrain that confuses triangulation, ravines, cliff faces, waterfalls that mask sound. They rehearse displacement routes under fire, crawl vectors, rally points, primary and alternate extraction zones, before inserting. The marksman never shoots from the team's patrol base. He moves forward, fires, then crawls back along a different axis. This offsets the acoustic fix from the team's actual location. Standard procedure dictates that after any shot, the team remains motionless, letting the mortar barrage expend itself on empty jungle. Movement during the barrage creates secondary signatures, broken branches, thermal contrast, visible displacement that spotters exploit. Stillness, even under shrapnel, improves survival odds. Between May and October of 70, Company L records 23 sniper engagements in the Ashau Valley, 19 draw mortar fire within 90 seconds. In 11 engagements, rounds land within 50 meters, in 4 within 20 meters. No team members are killed by counterfire, though 3 sustain shrapnel wounds. The survival rate reflects terrain exploitation and fire discipline. Teams that shoot and immediately displace perpendicular to the original axis survive. Teams that shoot and run straight back toward extraction zones walk into pre-plotted kill zones. The People's Army of Vietnam anticipates exfiltration routes. Mortar crews hold fire on likely withdrawal corridors, waiting for movement. The network does not just respond to shots, it predicts subsequent behavior. Long-range reconnaissance patrol snipers counter this by adding deception. False hides rigged with tripwires and smoke grenades, decoy movement along one axis while the team withdraws along another. The shot is theater. Survival is choreography. Not the kill, but the crawl through wait-a-minute vines. June 12, 1971, 1:10 in the afternoon, Indochina time, War Zone C, northeast of Tay Ninh City, Tay Ninh Province, an Army of the Republic of Vietnam Ranger sniper team from the 4th Ranger. Group occupies a tree line overlooking a suspected Viet Cong resupply cache. The primary sniper carries a U.S.-supplied M21 with a leatherwood adjustable ranging telescope. His security element includes 2 riflemen and a radio man. At 1:12, 3 Viet Cong soldiers emerge from a tunnel entrance, hauling ammunition crates. The sniper fires. 1 soldier falls. The remaining 2 drop the crates and sprint toward the tunnel. The sniper does not fire again. His team leader, adhering to protocol, signals immediate withdrawal. The team moves into a dry creek bed, takes cover behind a fallen teak tree, and goes silent. At 28 seconds after the shot, a mortar round detonates from the original tree line. At 45 seconds, 3 more rounds impact in a line, each closer. At 70 seconds, a 5th round lands directly in the tree line, shredding the vegetation where the team had been. Simultaneously, a platoon-sized Viet Cong element, approximately 30 soldiers, emerges from the jungle and advances toward the tree line. The ranger team, concealed behind the log, does not engage. The Viet Cong unit sweeps through the tree line, firing bursts into likely hides, then continues east. They pass within 30 meters of the creek bed. The ranger team waits motionless for 12 minutes after the last Viet Cong soldier disappears. Only then do they belly crawl south to a pre-designated rally point and radio for extraction. The first shot is loud. Silence is survival. Army of the Republic of Vietnam sniper doctrine, heavily influenced by U.S. Marine Corps training, emphasizes the distinction between killing and surviving. Ranger units operating in War Zone C, War Zone D, and along the Cambodian border adopt strict one-shot discipline by 1970. Snipers are instructed to fire only when the tactical gain, a high-value target, disruption of a resupply operation, justifies triggering the acoustic network. After firing, the team immediately transitions to evasion mode. Displace, hide, wait. Engaging the responding counter-sniper element is forbidden unless cornered. The doctrine acknowledges that the sniper team, typically 4 soldiers, cannot win a firefight against a reinforced platoon supported by mortars. Discretion, not valor, defines success. Between January and September of 71, the 4th Ranger Group logs 31 sniper engagements in War Zone C. In 24, mortar fire or counter-sniper sweeps follow within 2 minutes. In 9, the Ranger team takes small arms fire from pursuing units. 0 sniper teams are overrun or wiped out. This survival rate stems from disciplined withdrawal and pre-planned evasion routes. The Rangers treat every shot as bait, every hide as temporary, every exfiltration as the mission's true objective. The invisible network does not distinguish between U.S. and Army of the Republic of Vietnam snipers. It responds identically. Fix, saturate, sweep. Survival hinges not on nationality or equipment, but on adherence to the displacement clock. Not the kill from the tree line, but the silence behind the log. November 19th, 1969, 6:40 in the morning, Indochina time, south of Firebase Erskine, Quang Tri Province. A Marine sniper team from 3rd Battalion 3rd Marines sets up in a bomb crater from a suspected People's Army of Vietnam trench complex. The primary sniper, armed with a Remington 700, scans the tree line through his unearthly scope. His spotter, lying prone beside him, uses binoculars to identify movement near a fortified bunker entrance. At 6:42, the sniper spots a People's Army of Vietnam soldier adjusting a heavy machine gun positioned to cover the firebase's northern approach. The sniper centers the crosshairs, compensates for crosswind, and fires. The machine gunner slumps. The spotter immediately whispers, "Glint." Both men flatten into the crater, pulling camouflage netting over their bodies. At 11 seconds, a rifle crack echoes from the tree line. A counter-sniper. The round impacts the crater rim above their heads. At 19 seconds, a second shot strikes the opposite rim. At 27 seconds, a mortar round detonates short. At 42 seconds, a second mortar round lands closer. At 58 seconds, a third round impacts inside the crater, but meters from the team, who have shifted position within the depression. For the next 4 minutes, 8 more mortar rounds bracket the crater. The sniper team does not move. When the barrage ceases, they wait another 8 minutes, then begin a crawl south along a shallow trench line excavated by artillery weeks prior. They cover 150 meters in 75 minutes, reach a secondary crater, and radio for extraction. The scope glint gave us away. The crater saved us. Scope glint, the reflection of sunlight off objective lenses, is the most common visual signature that betrays sniper positions. By 1969, People's Army of Vietnam counter-sniper units trained specifically to scan for glint during dawn and late afternoon hours, when low-angle sun maximizes reflections. Once detected, a counter-sniper fires suppressive rounds while mortar crews adjust onto the position. Marine sniper teams counter glint through multiple methods: rubber kill flash devices, netting over the objective lens, shooting only when the sun is behind them, and using natural cover, vegetation, shadows, to block direct light. The most effective technique, however, is the deliberate false glint. Teams position small mirrors, broken glass, or polished metal fragments away from their actual hide, angled to catch sunlight. When enemy observers spot the glint, they fix on the decoy. Mortar rounds and counter-sniper fire saturate the wrong grid square. The actual team remains undetected, watches the barrage, and exfiltrates during the confusion. Between September and December of 1969, Marine sniper teams near the demilitarized zone employ false glint tactics in 11 engagements. In 8, enemy fire concentrates on the decoy position. In 2, the enemy recognizes the deception and shifts fire. Both teams successfully displace before rounds land. The tactic exploits the network's strength, its speed, by feeding it false data. The invisible network is fast, coordinated, and lethal, but it is not infallible. It depends on accurate sensory input. Corrupt the input, and the network misfires. Not the kill, but the false glint that draws fire away. By 1970, the pattern clarifies. The shot is not the end of the sniper's mission, it is the beginning of the enemy's hunt. Acoustic triangulation, visual cueing, and coordinated fires compress the decision window to seconds. Snipers who treat engagement as a single act, aim, shoot, celebrate, die. Snipers who rehearse evasion as rigorously as marksmanship survive. The invisible network transforms Vietnam's jungles and villages into sensor grids where survival depends less on hitting the target than on becoming invisible again before the system locks on. The infrastructure behind the acoustic network draws from decades of Soviet and Chinese anti-sniper doctrine, adapted to Vietnam's terrain and guerrilla force structure. Soviet advisors, many veterans of Stalingrad urban combat and Eastern Front counter-sniper campaigns, arrive in North Vietnam as early as 1965, bringing manuals translated from Russian into Vietnamese. These manuals outline acoustic triangulation procedures originally developed for city fighting, where sound reflects off buildings, creating false echoes. Vietnam's jungles present different acoustics. Canopy absorbs high frequencies, humidity dampens shock waves, but the core principle holds. Time, the interval between crack and boom, plot bearings, estimate range. Chinese military advisors contribute mortar doctrine, emphasizing rapid displacement and pre-plotted fire coordinates. By 1967, People's Army of Vietnam and Viet Cong mortar crews drill on timed fire missions. From alert to first round in under 60 seconds, adjust and saturate within 3 minutes. Ammunition expenditure is not a concern. Suppression and area denial matter more than precision. A single rifle shot justifies multiple mortar rounds if it denies the enemy a safe firing position. The human intelligence layer, village spotters, militia, children, functions as the network's distributed sensor array. People's Army of Vietnam political officers train civilians to recognize sniper indicators, trampled vegetation, unnatural stillness, camouflage netting, the faint smell of cosmoline or gun oil. Villagers report to local cadre. Cadre relay to military units within minutes via runner or radio. In contested areas, Viet Cong units position observers in trees, on rooftops, and along trails specifically to watch for sniper movement during dawn and dusk, prime hunting hours. These observers carry signal mirrors, colored cloth panels, or small radios. They do not engage, only report. The system's distributed nature makes it nearly impossible for U.S. and Army of the Republic of Vietnam forces to dismantle. Killing one spotter or mortar crew accomplishes nothing. Replacements arrive within days. The network regenerates faster than it can be degraded. American and South Vietnamese sniper units adapt not by destroying the network but by exploiting its predictable behavior. Scout sniper schools at Gia Nang, Bien Hoa, and Camp Perry teach deception as a survival skill. False hides, decoy shots, offset positions. Teams learn to fire from positions that mislead acoustic triangulation, inside culverts, behind ridge lines, next to waterfalls where ambient noise masks the report. They rehearse displacement drills until movement becomes automatic. Shoot, roll, crawl, freeze, assess. They memorize exfiltration routes under blackout conditions, pacing off distances, marking terrain features by touch. The best teams pre-position gear, water, ammunition, radios, at rally points along withdrawal routes, eliminating the need to carry full loads during evasion. They use radio-slewed artillery and air support to create diversions. Call in fire missions away from their position, triggering enemy movement, then displace during the chaos. Some teams coordinate with reconnaissance aircraft, a forward air controller orbiting overhead monitors enemy responses and vectors the sniper team towards safe corridors. The integration of air and ground intelligence turns evasion into a multi-layered system that mirrors the enemy's network. But the advantage remains fragile. One mistake, a visible movement, a second shot, a radio transmission intercepted, collapses the margin. Between 66 and 72, U.S. and Army of the Republic of Vietnam, sniper losses to counter-fire and ambushes total approximately 80 confirmed, with an estimated 50 more missing or unaccounted for in chaotic engagements. Most deaths occurred not during the shot, but during the displacement window, caught crawling, pinned by mortar fire, intercepted by roving counter-sniper teams. The kill-to-loss ratio for Marine snipers averages around 20-1, high by historical standards, but the denominator reflects not enemy sniper fire, but the network's coordinated lethality. Army snipers attached to infantry and cavalry units fare worse, largely because they operate under less rigorous displacement protocols and often remain with their parent units instead of exfiltrating independently. The data underscores a brutal calculus. The shot itself is low risk. The next 5 minutes are the gauntlet. Snipers who master evasion accumulate kills and survive tours. Snipers who linger, who take pride in observing the aftermath, who attempt follow-up shots, die. The invisible network does not care about individual skill, weapon quality, or tactical innovation. It cares about time and geometry. How long the shooter remains in place, how accurately the system fixes his position, how quickly fire arrives. The network is patient. It does not need to kill every sniper. It only needs to force constant movement, exhaust the hunter, and erode his willingness to engage. Psychological attrition becomes as significant as physical casualties. By 71, some sniper teams report declining shot opportunities, not because targets are scarce, but because the anticipated response deters engagement. The network wins not by killing, but by suppressing. Yet the snipers who internalize the network's rules, who treat every shot as the trigger for a scripted evasion, who rehearse displacement until it becomes reflex, survive and adapt. Hathcock, Waldron, Mawhinney, and others accumulate records not through recklessness, but through discipline. They respect the network. They understand that in Vietnam, the scope's crosshairs are also crosshairs on them. The moment they fire, the jungle wakes up. Survival depends on the crawl, the hide, the pre-planned route rehearsed like prayers. Not the shot, but the belly crawl through mud. Not the kill confirmed, but the extraction completed. Not the sniper's bullet, but the network's silent, invisible response. The shot makes the sniper visible. The next 5 minutes decide if he lives. Not marksmanship, but evasion. Not the hunt, but the escape. The acoustic triangulation network and its layered response protocols persist through the end of U.S. ground combat operations in '72 and continue during the Army of the Republic of Vietnam struggles through '75. After the war, People's Army of Vietnam doctrinal reviews credit the counter-sniper system with limiting U.S. and Army of the Republic of Vietnam sniper effectiveness, forcing shorter engagement windows and reducing psychological impact on frontline troops. The system's success lies not in technological sophistication. Most components are manual, low cost, and dependent on human observers, but in integration and speed. Soviet and Chinese advisory teams regard the Vietnam counter-sniper network as a model exportable to other insurgencies. Elements appear in Nicaraguan, Afghan, and Middle Eastern conflicts through the 1980s and 90s. For U.S. snipers, the lessons learned in Vietnam reshaped training and doctrine permanently. Post-war sniper schools at Quantico, Fort Benning, and Fort Bragg incorporate displacement drills, acoustic awareness, and evasion rehearsals as core curriculum components. The Marine Corps Scout Sniper School institutionalizes the two-man team structure, emphasizing mutual security and rapid egress. Scope kill flash devices, once improvised field expedients, become standard issue. The one-shot displacement rule evolves into formal doctrine: engage, assess, displace within 60 seconds. Vietnam's invisible network also influences equipment development. Suppressors, previously rare in U.S. sniper arsenals, gain traction as tools to reduce acoustic signatures. By the 80s, suppressed sniper rifles enter special operations inventories. Acoustic detection research intensifies, leading to U.S. counter-battery radar and sniper detection systems deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan decades later. The irony is not lost on veterans. The system that hunted them becomes the system they adopt. Carlos Hathcock, interviewed in the 1980s, reflects on the Sanh engagements and the mortar barrages that followed nearly every shot. We learned to respect the enemy's speed. They turned the jungle into a machine that listened. The network's legacy is not a single weapon or tactic, but a conceptual shift. The understanding that in certain environments, the hunter becomes the hunted the moment he acts. Vietnam demonstrates that technological superiority, better scopes, rifles, training, does not guarantee dominance if the adversary controls the sensory and response infrastructure. The sniper's traditional advantage, distance and concealment, collapses when the environment itself becomes hostile, when every sound triggers a cascade, when every glint invites fire. The invisible network does not need to see the sniper to kill him. It only needs to hear the shot, estimate the grid, and saturate the square. In Vietnam, survival depends less on the perfect shot than on the imperfect escape. The best snipers are not those who never miss, but those who never stay. They fire, and then they vanish. Before the net closes, the network wins if the sniper lingers. The sniper wins if he moves. Not the shot that starts the engagement, but the crawl that ends it. In Vietnam, the invisible network teaches a final lesson. The mission is not complete when the target falls. It is complete when the sniper lives to fire again. The mythology of the lone sniper, silent, invisible, untouchable, dies in Vietnam's jungles. The shot doesn't end the engagement. It triggers a countdown. Acoustic triangulation, coordinated mortars, and human spotters collapse on the firing point within seconds, turning concealment into a trap. Survival hinges not on marksmanship, but on evasion. The crawl, the displacement, the pre-planned route rehearsed until instinctive. In Vietnam, the shot starts the hunt. For you,